All right. There is still too much mystery in the Arsenal world. Welcome to the latest edition of the Daily Booner, the Daily Booner, Gooner podcast. The mystery has just driven my mind round the bend. Welcome again, joining you from the United States. I'm Raphael, and this weekend we have our fourth member of our London triumvirate with us. I want to welcome Jacob back after a short hiatus. Welcome back, Jacob.
Good to be back.
All right, and of course, the regulars below me on your radio or on your video quad in this case is Sam. Welcome back, Sam.
Hello, mate. Hope everything is well.
Everything is well, aside from the transfer market. We'll get to that in a moment. Of course, to my left is Ryan. Welcome, Ryan. Shows my name on your name, but it's Ryan. Ryan is here. Welcome, Ryan.
I am here. I can confirm.
Okay. All right. So, let's jump to it. A lot to discuss. The season opens just 3 days from now. Arsenal play Brighton, newly promoted Brighton. It's not Brighton.
Brentford.
No, Brentford.
What am I saying? Anyway, Arsenal opens the season in 3 days. A lot of uncertainty. Who's coming in? Who's Brentford? My bad. My brain has gone fuzzy. Anyway, let's start with the market. 2 weeks ago, we thought 3 or 4 names are going to come in. Arsenal needs a striker. Arsenal needs a 10. Arsenal needs a new keeper. Arsenal might need another defensive mid. A week ago, Madison's going to be here in the next week. Abraham will be here. Maybe Martinez. One of these keepers will come in, and Ramsdale will come in. And here we are on the 10th of August. I'll start with you, Sam. Nothing. People are getting nervous.
Yeah. It is what it is, unfortunately. The club works in silence. We knew this. Just a case of seeing what happens and going forward, really. It's been slow in terms of news, but generally, as we know, silence leads up to something.
So in your estimation, is there any need to really panic, or just mild concern? I mean, where does your concern meter fall right now? Again, the season begins in 3 days.
I'm still pretty chilled about it because I think the first game, Brentford, I think that we've got enough. If we start Sammy Lokonga in midfield, but yeah, generally quite chilled about it. I think if nothing's happened towards, I don't know, say the 24th, 25th, then maybe a bit of worry, but ultimately it happens to, it's always happens in the last 2 weeks. We know this historically.
Yeah, and that is true. I mean, I don't want to reference, Arsenal is the subject of this year's All or Nothing. And, we can reference the last one, which covered Tottenham. And, if there was one nugget of wisdom that came out of that was Daniel Levy looking at Jose Mourinho and saying, because Jose was kind of mystified about the lack of movement, he said everything always happens at the very end. And whether we like it or not, I think we all know the players we want, we all know the positions we want, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the market. It doesn't matter Arsenal's going to pay money. Jacob, it does look like Arsenal has money to spend, but that old bugaboo that's haunted this club the last several windows remains. They have too many deadwood, overpaid, contented players who can't seem to leave.
Yeah, I mean, we always hear it. Last several seasons, Arsenal don't have money. We do have money. We've probably got more money again for various reasons or smart business decisions going on behind the scenes. But yeah, we have a squad space issue, which goes back several years now. And obviously, with loanees coming back, we've actually right now got a bigger squad than we finished the season with. So trying to bring in more players, we could be heading towards what we had at the start of last season, not being able to register certain players. And we know how that went. So maybe we're heading towards the same, but maybe that's a kick up the backside for some of these players going, we better sort of move before that is what happens.
Raf, you're
unmute
on mute.
myself. Sorry, Ryan. Let's talk about a subject that we have discussed several times on offsite, and that is that perhaps it's time for the manager and for Edu to pull some of these players aside and say, look, you are not going to be part of this club's plans going forward. It's time to find another club. Maybe Arsenal's doing that. We don't know. As Sam said at the beginning, and as we know, we reiterate this on pod after pod, Arsenal doesn't talk. Certainly they don't negotiate and they don't handle their internal business in the press. But, I'm looking at a list here. There's 3 kinds of players that Arsenal could move out and probably should move out. Let's start with the kids. Joe Willock, who appears to be probably the most certain of all of them, going to Newcastle. Eddie Nketiah does seem to have a market. We'll talk about him in a moment. Ainsley Maitland-Niles, who knows? Could he stay? Could he go? It does seem that still he's a player who could draw interest. And then of the veterans, the older ones, some who still could be enticing, Hector Bellerin, Alexander Lacazette, but they have very large salaries that seem to be kind of blocking their moves, especially to places like Italy where there doesn't seem to be a lot of money. And then there is the real deadwood, Kolasinac, Willian, and maybe Cedric. I don't think Cedric's a bad player, but he's really caught in a numbers game at right back. What is the club to do? I mean, Edu's taken a lot of abuse on social media for not being able to get these guys out, but how much leeway does he have? He can't just start whacking people as much as we would like that.
No, and I think I was always on the side of trying to shift them before having to either pay them off or not register them, because I've always maintained the club has values and they don't do that to players, especially after the battering the club took last year of not registering the highest paid player at the club and so on. But at this point, these players, if they can't find a club, they're holding us back. It's as simple as that. I think it's been reported for a long, long time that these players are on the market. They are not wanted, and yet they're still here, and we haven't heard anything about them leaving so far. And it's getting to a point where I think Edu has to tell them, you're just not going to be registered. You're not going to be registered, so either find a club or sit on the sidelines for 6 months or a few months or whatever it is until January, until you can find a team. Mm-hmm. But which in that case, players like Kolasinac, Lacazette, they would have 6 months left on their contract, so they could just sit pretty, sign a pre-contract in January and just wait it out and get a hefty sign-on bonus. So it's a tough situation for the club to be in. Past regimes have really messed us up here with the wages they've given to certain players and the averageness of these players, I should say, as well. They don't have a market, really. You think of Willian, nobody wants him. El Neni, nobody wants him. Lacazette, struggling to find a market for him, just solely because of his wages. If he wasn't on 108 grand a week, I think there would be teams lining up for him, but it's not the case.
So, how ruthless, Sam, does the club have to be? With a player like Alex Lacazette, should they be willing to cover part of his salary to move him away? Should they be willing to waive a transfer fee so that a club can swallow his large salary? I mean, how dire is it? I mean, we don't want to talk too much about the preseason matches, but let's talk about the preseason matches. One of the issues that's come forward is that our strikers are not finishing. And I think of all the things we've seen in the preseason, that's probably the one that worries the fans the most.
Yeah, I've always been of the opinion that with Ryan Shifton beforehand, but we're in a stage now where we can't allow for any sentiment. I've been saying on Twitter in group chats for the last couple of days that the problem with us at the moment is our strikers, because they're not clinical. And essentially, we can do the build-up play, we can put the crosses in, but where you're getting Laka just air-shotting the majority of them or not being in the box, the less I speak about Lacazette, pretty much is going to be better because I've made my feelings on him perfectly clear. So I think for me, it's the fact of get a striker in, tell him, look, you're not going to be in the plans. It's up to you what you do, but ultimately, if it comes to it, we won't register you. So, do you essentially want to waste 6 months of your dwindling career? Probably not. So, find yourself another club. And this is what it boils down to: is that we need to put that ruthlessness into the management and into this squad because they're just too comfortable collecting massive wages. And some people go, well, fair enough, but ultimately it wasn't them who offered it. No, it wasn't. But also you've got to remember it wasn't this regime that offered them wages also. So yeah, fed up of sentiment, get rid of them by any means necessary right now.
All right, and sticking with that topic, Jacob, how concerned should we be? We haven't talked about specific players. I mean, we know that I'm not going to wave the red Lacazette shirt in front of Sam because that's just not fair to Sam and that's not fair to us. We've heard this before. But Aubameyang, last year we knew he had personal problems, injury issues. He had an off year, certainly by his standards. But there hasn't been much this summer to dissuade us from the fact that maybe wasn't just a one-off. How much time, how concerned should we be about him as well?
I am a little bit concerned because we have seen him get into the positions, and we've said constantly he's getting positions he will score. That's still not happening. However, I do think just systematically the way Arteta is playing is moving away from relying on Aubameyang and reducing his effectiveness as the system changes. It suits him less and less, which ultimately I don't think is a bad thing. We were so reliant on him, and the fact that we're trying to move to a team-based game, even if that does diminish Aubameyang's influence on the team and his chances to score goals, is ultimately going to benefit us longer term.
All right, so Ryan, let's stick with the striker position because there's still a lot to sort out. It seems that let's take the three names that are here right now, the four names. Let's talk with Aubameyang, Lacazette, Nketiah, and Bellerin. Okay. Let's go beyond Friday. Let's go 2 weeks. Let's go to the end of the window. How many of those four, in your opinion, are still going to be on the squad, and who are they?
I would suggest two of them. I think Aubameyang and Lacazette are still going to be here. I think for Bellerin, it's probably best he finds a decent side that he can play all season with, instead of playing a game here and there for Arsenal this season. I think for his development, it's probably better he plays full games rather than be third or fourth choice behind two aging strikers and potentially a new guy. But I think Eddie will go. I think Eddie will probably sign for Brighton, which has been rumoured in the last couple of days. So I think we'll struggle to move Lacazette, and I can't see us selling our captain this window.
All right, Sam, similar question for you, but with a slightly amended addendum to this. All right, four strikers, who are still going to be here when the window closes, and also who's coming in. It seems the leader in the clubhouse among the bettors, among the fans, is Tammy Abraham. We've been talking about Tammy Abraham. He's not a surprising name, but are we at the point now where it's simply a matter of getting say Nketiah out to bring Abraham in? There were a lot of rumors, a lot of people panicking 24 hours ago. Word from Italy that Roma had agreed to fee for Abraham with Chelsea. That seems to have cooled down. We've since heard stories that Abraham is waiting on Arsenal. It seems that that's his preference, is to stay in London. So you parse it out for us. I think you might be muted, Sam. It's okay. I've done it too.
I would probably say staying would be Orba, begrudgingly Lacazette, and I reckon Tammy will probably come in. Although, got a sneaky suspicion that Martinez still might be on the agenda, despite what's been reported in Italy. But yeah, I think that probably going to be Orba, Laka, and Tammy are going to be the ones staying. Eddie going permanently, and I don't want him to go, but probably Balogun loan.
Where would Bellerin go, in your opinion? Would he wind up on a championship side? Is he ready to be? We saw Nketiah last year at Leeds, start the season at Leeds. Is Bellerin ready to do something similar to that this year, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think Balogun is different levels to what Eddie produces. To be perfectly honest, I think that he's more rounded within his game.
Would he have a market? Arsenal offered him.
Yeah, definitely. Most definitely, he'd have a market. Well, you've just got to think there was 15 teams, top teams that was waiting to sign him on a Bosman. So
true.
There will definitely be a market for him. It's just down to Ben Knapper to essentially find the right loan for him, which going by Ben's track record with our loanees recently, it's been exceptionally good. So I've got every faith that Arsenal will find the right loan for him if he does depart.
All right. Jacob, we're going to move away from the strikers a little bit. Let's go to number 10, because we know that's, along with striker, it seems that's become what's been the priority position, even with Emile Smith-Rowe taking the 10. Ryan's wearing the 10. We can't see it today, but if you could spin him around, he would have the 10. He is wearing the 10 today. But Arsenal still needs a proper 10. We can talk about whether Smith-Rowe can grow into the role. That really doesn't seem to be where he is right now, a week in, week out playmaker. Obviously, it seems James Maddison remains a priority. I want to say the priority, but the on again, off again, will he come, won't he come saga of one Martin Odegaard that we thought was dead and buried has now seemingly come back from the dead. Although I heard earlier today that Danny Ceballos has torn a knee ligament, and that may, in fact, just as the ghost of Martin Odegaard was coming back, throw it back into the ground again. What is Arsenal going to do? I'll ask you. I asked them about strikers. What do you think Arsenal's going to do about an attacking midfielder?
Well, we know someone is definitely going to come in. That's a position that we had to fill with a load last year. And we know they've been chasing one all summer. Regarding that Ceballos injury, let's be real, Ceballos wasn't going to play for Madrid this season anyway. So him getting injured does not affect their squad or playing time at all, as far as I'm concerned. And he's not even exactly the same position as Odegaard, so I don't see that having any impact. The question's going to be who Arsenal's priority is and which club's willing to make the deal. By the looks of it, Odegaard is pushing for a move, and Real Madrid don't tend to block that. They'd put a price on him. Leicester, they're a complicated one to deal with, but I don't think would be this late in the window still having this discussion if they weren't open to the move, and if he wasn't open to the move. So I think it's going to come down to how much money the club wants to spend and who they prefer as their number one target. I think this group knows my preferred target is 100% Odegaard. And I believe the plan is to have more of a debate on that tomorrow, Odegaard v Maddison. So, yeah, there will be a 10 coming in, and I'm pretty sure there's not going to be a surprise name at this point either. I think we know who the two options are.
All right. Ryan, it does seem at this point with the 10 that Arsenal it's a matter of they could go either direction and they just need to pull the trigger. I mean, it does seem the stories from Madrid yesterday where the Odegaard is now asking out. So if that's the case, we know Arteta likes Odegaard. given those two, Madison and Odegaard. I think, this is just my opinion, that he would go for Odegaard because he's familiar, he's played in the system, he was developing the system, he had a rapport with Pepe. And let's talk about something you pointed out. He really seems to, his play seems to drift to the right, really complements what Emile Smith-Rowe does very well on the left. But Madison, it seems they've gone really far with Madison too. When is the deadline? When do you? This seems to be internal to me. When do you think Arsenal's finally got to? Somebody is going to say we need to make a decision.
I think the club are waiting for Willock to be announced at Newcastle, and then they're going to pull the trigger on a number 10, because I don't think you leave us that short in that position again. They saw it last season where we only had Willock in that position, and I don't think Arteta will do that again. I think if we wanted Odegaard, we'd have had him already, because I don't think it's a difficult deal. If we said to Madrid, we'll pay you 40 million right now, and I think Odegaard would leave just purely because first team starting 11 every week for us. So I don't think that would have been a difficult deal. I think we're waiting for the Madison deal to progress and see where it goes. And if we can't get him, we know Odegaard is a sure thing. So I think we'll probably start hearing little bits here and there by the end of the week about Madison, and then hopefully by the end of next week we should be should have a little bit more clarity on what we're doing in that position.
All right, Sam, I'm going to ask you to. I don't know if you can pull anything up, but you can describe this, because I know that you and Ryan have had this discussion. You two have been doing a lot of scouting and looking at heat maps and looking at tapes and looking at production of the two number 10s. In your opinion, which one fits what Arteta would like to do better? It seems like they both could. That might be. I think this is part of why the decision is so hard. But given the players they would be that are surrounding them, who's better for the quick start, and who, in your opinion, who's better for the long run?
I'd say quick start is probably going to be Odegaard, because obviously he's acclimatised to the side. He knows how Arteta wants to play. He knows what is expected from him. He just gets what Arteta's trying to do within this team. But if you're looking realistically at who fits us better, Odegaard, I believe he tends to take a lot of the pitch towards the right-hand side. But if you look at Maddison's heat maps, it's right away across the attacking midfield. So he's very fluid in where he picks the ball up from. And so if you're looking longer term, you're probably going to be looking at Maddison, but you're also got to factor in what type of striker that you're getting in, and if it is going to be the target man, it's probably going to be Maddison, so he can bounce the ball off the target man and move into goal scoring opportunities. But if you're going to be looking at somebody that runs in behind, probably Odegaard.
Okay, and as you said, we've talked about this before. It almost like you have to buy in packages. So you're saying, let's say Abraham's coming in. It sounds like Maddison is the guy you want.
Yeah,
am I hearing you right?
definitely in that situation. And if it is that situation, then I think them two in tandem will work very, very well together.
All right, let's not let this die. I mean, it seems it's kind of we were hot on this rumor last week. It's really cooled down significantly since Lukaku went from Inter to Chelsea. But that we were talking about Lautaro Martinez last week. It seems everything changes minute to minute that he's staying at Inter. But you were mentioning earlier that you're not fully convinced of that. But we're playing the what if game here. Let's say he becomes the priority striker. Then who's your midfield? Who's his tandem 10?
See, with him, he tends to pick a position up on the left. So if you're potentially stationing him out onto the left and put, say, Aubameyang through the middle, then it'll be Odegaard, because then Odegaard picks out the runs of Aubameyang, and also Martinez as a secondary off the ball runner is perfect for Odegaard. Because if you've got runners that are willing to stretch the back line, then, Odegaard will find them. But having said that, Maddison can do that. Maybe not to the same extent, but I think with Martinez, if you're going to have Maddison behind him, Martinez's pressing is going to be the key factor in unlocking the best out of Maddison as well. Because that's one thing that we really don't do from in games is defend from the front well.
All right. Jacob, want to change topics here. Early in the Spurs match on the weekend, Bernd Leno had a collision. Bernd Leno was down for a few moments. I think in that minute or so when he was down, a lot of Arsenal fans were fearing the worst, thinking, uh-oh, here we go again. This is what we saw 2 years ago, only now there's no Emi Martinez on the bench. What do we do? Have we really left ourselves exposed with the season on the horizon? Thankfully, he got up. He was okay. But Arsenal are playing with fire right now. As far as their keeper depth, they really don't have anybody at the moment behind Bernd Leno. The Ramsdale rumor has, again, taken on life. I think everybody seems of the opinion in Arsenal world that he's coming. If the price is negotiated, everybody has got an opinion of what's too expensive, what's not. It seems that Sheffield wants £30 million for him. Is this one that Arsenal just have to push through, given how worrisome it was looking at Bernd Leno down on the ground?
Definitely. This is a position that I am kind of baffled that we haven't pulled the trigger on yet. It's not... we've talked about strikers and other positions where we need to move people on to before we can fill that spot. Goalkeeper isn't one of those. We just don't have that second choice keeper. Obviously, Ryan's loan ended. So it's definitely something that we could just get done. And yeah, obviously Ramsdale getting left out of the Sheffield United game tonight does indicate there is something going on, because that would it means he won't be cup tied if he does move to us. So it's not like a league game where you can play them and sell them after. They're keeping him available in the cups. So you've got to believe that they're certainly in advanced talks. The only thing I can imagine Sheffield have been pretty insistent on their asking price, and Arsenal are still trying to get it down. But we really are approaching a crunch time, because if Leno was to get injured against Brentford during the game, we're seeing Runarsson, and I don't think anyone is ready to see more of Runarsson.
No, not again. Ever.
But then there are still not solid, but there's tenuous links with other goalkeepers emerging even last night. But Ramsdale is certainly the one that looks like he's coming, and he's also the homegrown slot, which we discussed before at goalkeeper. You don't really want a backup or a third choice keeper taking up a non-homegrown spot. So it makes sense.
All right. Ryan, any other names? I know we've kicked Onana around, but that's for the January window. That's for next year. Is there anybody else besides Aaron Ramsdale? I mean, if Arsenal looking at, we were talking about Johnstone last week from West Brom. But again, Arsenal are crunch time. And it seems like they have about 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 crunch time moves. And at some point, they've really got to start pulling the trigger on these.
Yeah, there's a few names been bandied around, like Johnstone. There's Freddie Woodman from Newcastle. The QPR keeper, I can't remember his name. Is it, I'm not going to try and remember it. I can't remember his name, but he was also linked to Sheffield United as a Ramsdale replacement. There's another one from Standard Liège. I can't remember his name. Van der Voort.
Yeah, Van der Voort.
Yeah, his name has been linked to Arsenal on social media this week. yeah, there's quite a few options we have. So it'd be interesting to see which one we take. I think we'll probably go for Ramsdale. As I said before, he's the perfect age profile. He's 22, so he's not too into his career to be a number one at Arsenal, but he has the potential to take over as number one in the future. Which is but saying that, he's also good enough to push the number one goalkeeper at Arsenal now. So Leno's 28, 29?
Thereabouts, yeah.
Ramsdale's 22. The gap between them two is enough for Ramsdale to push Leno now to a better level, and for him to eventually take over. So I think that would be that'd be a good deal, and I don't think the fee will be anything that's been reported. I don't think it'd be that high at all.
Well, even if it was, I mean, is this something that we really should be worried about? Isn't this a matter of, you said, if this is a long-term investment, if he's 22, if you think this is a long-term solution for you, are you going to quibble over basically £5 million is what we're talking about?
Personally, I'm not too fussed about how much the club spends as long as they get everything they need to. So if we spent 30 million on Ramsdale, but also spent 65 on James Maddison, I'm not too fussed. But if we spend 30 million on Ramsdale, but then say we can't afford James Maddison, then I have an issue with it. But at the moment, we don't know. So right. I'm not gonna say that. At the moment, I'm not fussed if we spend 30 million on him, but I don't think we will.
All right, Sam, let's go to, again, another position that's packed. Arsenal really have to make some moves. Outgoings, ingoings. We're talking about right back. Hector's still the club. Hector's still starting. Hector may be starting on Friday, for all we know. After all the talk that he might be going to Inter, he might be going to Atletico Madrid. He's still starting matches for Arsenal. Cedric's still in the club. A lot of debate about Callum Chambers. Also some talk that Chambers might be going inside, that maybe Rob Holding might be the next player of Joe Willock. I saw some rumors yesterday that Newcastle's also interested in him. A lot of the right side of that back line still seems unsettled. And here we are 72 hours from the opening of the season. Similar question to what we asked before. They've got 4 players there. Who's going to start the season when the window closes? How many are going to be left? And will they go outside of the organization and look for another one? Because, I mean, we can still throw Ainsley Maitland-Niles in that discussion while we're doing this.
Yeah, I think you're probably going to be starting with Chambers come Brentford. There was rumours floating around that Trippier has been linked to us. If that is the case, I could probably see Hector Bellerin going to Atletico and Trippier coming the other way. There's been a lot of reports saying that Cedric wants to stay and fight for his place. I don't know whether that's reflected by the management. You mentioned Holding. I think I saw today Chris Wheatley come out and said that was just rumour. Nothing's changed since the summer in regards to Rob Holding and Newcastle. So ultimately, if we're in a situation, I think you can probably see Maitland-Niles go in because, you know, he's been wanting to go for a while now. Bellerin go in, and then potentially you might see Chambers go in late into the window, but again, it depends on the market for him and what type of deals are happening at the time. But I think eventually we probably end up with Trippier in at some point.
Okay,
much to Jacob's disgust.
You've anticipated my next question. I'll let Jacob touch this because Jacob is not pleased by this. I was going to say, if they go outside the organization, you're of the mind that Trippier is going to be the player they target. Is that fair, Sam?
Sorry,
I said if they. So we're just to conclude before I let Jacob take his wax at that. If they go outside the organization, you're of the mind that Trippier is going to be the guy they would bring in.
I think so. Yeah. Because if you think he's solid defensively, he's got a good attacking output. He's good at their balls, crossings a plus. So it's a mirror image of your left-hand side with Kieran Tierney maybe just lacking a bit of the pace.
All right, Jacob, I'm going to let you have at this because I know he is to you what Lacazette is to Sam, is just a non-starter. You think this is a bad idea? Why? Tell us why.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pretend I don't think he's better than the options we have. We're looking at three right backs going, any of them could start. Trippier would get ahead of him. However, I don't think he's a massive upgrade. Yeah, like watching him for a few times for Atletico, watching him for England, I can't say I was overly impressed. His crossing is decent, but so is Chambers most of the time. So I just don't really see how much more he adds. And also, we've been talking about changing the age profile of the team. We're slowly bringing in younger players and trying to get off of these big players on big contracts. Bringing in Trippier, who might only have a year max left in him at even a half decent level. And then, sitting around for another 2 years just strikes me as another Willian situation. And I just don't see any smart logic in the club doing a deal like that.
Okay, fair enough. Now I'm going to stay with you. You're the guest this week. Let's move to the match. Season starts Friday. Who do you expect to see? And this is a question for all three of you. We're going to go around, but Jacob, you start us off. Who do you think starts for Arsenal? And what's your biggest concern given what we've seen in the last 2-3 matches since the trip to America was canceled?
I'd say most of it we could work out quite confidently. So we're going to see Leno in goal, Tierney at left back, partnership with Gabriel and White in central defence. I'm going to go with Chambers at right back. Again, as we said, that's a position very much up for debate, but I'm going to go with Chambers. Xhaka, and I'm really hoping it's going to be Lokonga. I don't think we should be starting on any. Lokonga has impressed massively in the games he's played. And I think he's just the right profile to replace Partey with the injury. So I'm really hoping we see a Lokonga competitive debut there. Given the lack of options, I think it's going to be Smith Rowe at 10. Which then the biggest question for me is who's going to be on the left. I think it probably will be Aubameyang with Lacazette up top and Pepe right. Given that Saka hasn't played too many minutes yet, I don't see him starting. My biggest concern is just the options we're going to have on the bench. We're going to have Saka, who's played a little bit, and not really anyone else who can come on and change the game. Again, I don't think Martinelli will even be available for this game after the Olympics. I could be wrong. We might see him on the bench, but in general, we have a first 11 that can compete and would compete with most teams, but we don't have any options to really change the game if it's not working.
All right, you see, Ryan, tell me your starting 11. Again, Jacobs give us an interesting question. Who starts up top, especially on the left? Who starts at striker? Do you have faith in Lokonga? Do you think the manager will have faith in Lokonga to start straight away?
So my team would be Leno, Tierney, Mari, White. So I don't think Gabriel's recovered from his injury yet.
Okay.
I'm going Cedric at right back because I know Brentford's left winger is pacey, and I watched Chambers pull in a fridge against Chelsea last week, so I wouldn't go Chambers personally. In midfield, I'm going Lokonga. He's been the standout performer this pre-season for me. He's just been absolutely unbelievable. Obviously, you could partner him with Xhaka for the experience and the experience. Number 10, Smith Rowe. Obviously, that's the only option we really have, unless you want to play Willian there, which I don't think anyone wants to do. On the right, I'm so torn between Pepe and Saka, but I think based on fitness, I'm going to go with Pepe. On the left, I'm going to be controversial. I'm starting Gabriel Martinelli.
Wow.
He's obviously match fit because he's been at the Olympics, but he hasn't played much at the Olympics. He had his holiday before the Olympics, so he should be match ready. So I'm starting Gabby, and I'm going with controversially Lacazette up front.
Interesting lineup. Interesting lineup. Sam, you line them up.
I would pretty much go with Ryan's one, but Aubameyang on the left instead of Gabby.
Okay. So I'm hearing a lot of Lacazette, for better for worse, is going to be the striker this weekend. What gives you the most pause given that and the limitations on the bench? I'll start with you, Sam.
Obviously, with options on the bench, I'd like to see Bellerin there. I'd like to see Gabby on the bench. I think if we're looking at our attacking options, if you're not going to be having them two there, it's pretty scarce. Your only other option would be Nketiah, but he's injured at the moment. Yeah. So ultimately, it's it's a bit worrying in that respect. But with them two on the bench, you've got no concerns, and the rest of the squad pretty much takes care of. The rest of the bench pretty much takes care of itself.
Okay, and looking at Brentford, champions of the championship, what concerns you, if anything, or maybe many things about them?
Ivan Toney, first and foremost. I think that's a given considering I wanted him at Arsenal, given his last couple of seasons. I think although their midfield isn't the most technical, I think they've got workhorses in there. And if we're not on it, they'll suffocate us. And it really depends what midfield we line up with. If we have El Neni in there, God help us. That's all I'm going to say in that respect. And yeah, their wing options, as Ryan said, they've got a winger that's quite pacey. But for them as a team, they know what they bring as a unit, and that's probably their greatest strength.
All right, Jacob, going back to you, it sounds like the concern, and Sam has echoed it. It seems like Ryan's echoed it. I mean, but all three of you have said you have some faith that the manager will put Lokonga there. You're the first one that said that. What concerns you? You've said the thinness of the bench concerns you. What about Brentford concerns you?
The one concern I've got is obviously in pre-season we have conceded quite a few headed goals. We've conceded from set pieces, and we know Brentford can cause damage on those, whether that's through Tony or someone else. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And which is why I'm really hoping Gabriel is back in the team, because he is someone who can take charge in the air. Whereas without him, we do leave ourselves vulnerable.
All right. So, Ryan, you wrap us up and you start us on the final cycle. Give us your concerns and give us a prediction.
I think my concerns with playing Brentford are their overlapping fullbacks. I know their left back is very, very good when he gets into the final third. I think his name's Henry. I might be wrong, but he's one to look out for. Their right back as well. He's very, very good. Getting into the final third. Obviously, they've got Tony up front and Josh De Silva, who actually came through at Arsenal. He's their engine in midfield, and they've got Norgard, the defensive midfielder, who is also very technically gifted. And as Sam said, their strength in numbers. They work as a unit, and that's their strength. Their team's just working as a team. That's their best strength, and that's how they beat you. Is they fight for each other basically. And as Jacob said, they are very good at corners. So that's my concerns on playing Brentford.
Give me a prediction.
Oh.
If season goes
I want to be positive like I usually am, but I'm going to say we're going to lose 2-1.
Oh.
They're just going to be up for it. First game in the Premier League at their new stadium. Fans are going to be buzzing. Players are going to be up for it. It's going to be one of those games.
Sam, what do you think?
I am probably going to go 1-0 us.
1-0. Okay. Jacob, bring us around.
I am confident we've got the first 11 to get a win. I do think we will concede, just whether that's tiredness through or the options we've got. So I'm going to go 2-1.
You took my score. I'm going to say 2-1 again for same reasons. I think this is the back end is for all the improvements with White. This is still a work in progress. We saw it over the weekend. The Arsenal right backs had some trouble. Leno really had to bail them out in moments. I do think, they're going to concede one, but I also think they should. I'm hoping the strikers will find it in them to at least put one of their opportunities in the back of the net, and somehow they'll. But I second what Ryan said. It's going to be one of those games for the better or for worse. So, all right, let's keep cross our fingers, and then we look for more good transfer news. So we want to thank all of you out there for joining us at this latest edition of Daily Gooner Pod. Follow us on Twitter. Follow each of us on our individual Twitters. You can follow us on our website at thedailygooner.com. New writers, new updates, new material constantly. Get your fix. Come to us for your daily fix of Arsenal news and opinion and analysis. So again, for all of us here at the pod, for Ryan, for Sam, for Jacob, who hopefully will come back again very soon, I'm Raphael. We bid you all a good night.